Well, today we are looking at the Deceiver, who is also known as Satan, who started out as Lucifer. And Lucifer has been in the news lately, literally. The New York Post, Chicago socialist Saul Alinsky, who is known by the left and the progressives as the father of community organizing, taught radicals, they've also been in the news lately, to rub raw the sores of discontent and create the conditions for a revolution. Well, Saul Alinsky, I don't recommend reading his book, but he dedicated his book titled Rules for Radicals to Lucifer. Lucifer started out as a morning star, references in Scripture to the planet Venus and those types of things. He is a created being by God, and he was supposed to have been one of the most beautiful angels that God ever created. But for some reason he rebelled against God, and God threw him out of heaven, and he took a third of the angels with him in rebellion. And so we see him in Scripture. We see slight pictures and glimpses of Lucifer, now known as Satan, in the Bible. And the Bible tells us very clearly that Satan is an accuser. In Zechariah chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, it says this. Then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to him, "The Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire?" So here we are, this picture standing before the angel of the Lord, Joshua the high priest, Satan at the priest's right hand to accuse him. Now, how many of you have watched a movie or a TV show with courtroom drama in it? I mean, I'm sure if you've watched television at one time or another, you've seen, the judge and the defense attorney and the prosecutor and this big courtroom drama. Some of you, I'm sure, have been in a courtroom, either as a juror or a witness, or seen the actual courtrooms on TV news or courtroom TV, which I'm not even sure exists anymore because I don't have cable. So I have a question for you. Where does the prosecutor sit? If you see the big courtroom movie or TV show or news show, where does the prosecutor sit? To the right. Exactly, to the right. And when we look at this scripture, where is Satan? He is standing on the right-hand side. See, the prosecutor sits on the right-hand side, and he presents to the courtroom, to the judge and the jury, why this person is guilty. And he goes through, he broke this law, he did this, we have this evidence, and he goes through, and basically the prosecutor in a courtroom accuses or presents why the person being prosecuted is guilty. That's exactly what Satan does, except he does it in a heavenly courtroom. And that is exactly what he does. He is the accuser. He accuses every single one of us. But we have a great defense attorney on the left-hand side. We have Jesus Christ defending us. And pretty much, he always wins. Now, as a side note, if you've never read a story about the great evangelist John Wesley, he quoted the last part of verse 2 from Zechariah for most of his life, saying that he was a brand plucked from the fire. Why? Because when he was a boy, the house that he was living in caught on fire, and he was trapped until he was literally rescued moments from death. But he was saved, and for the rest of his life, he told of how he was a brand plucked from the fire. And he got that from this verse here. Well, we can say the same thing figuratively. We are a brand plucked from the fire because Jesus Christ saves us, and he rebukes the accuser, Satan. Over in 1 Chronicles in the Old Testament, chapter 21, verses 1 through 3. Then Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel. We're going to come back to verse 1. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, "Go number Israel from Beersheba to Dan, and bring me a report that I may know their number." But Joab said, "May the Lord add to his people 100 times as many as they are. Are they not my lord the king, all of them my lord's servants? Why should my lord require this? Why should it be a cause of guilt for Israel?" That's an interesting verses. Satan stood against Israel and incited David to number Israel. When we read these verses, we see that David did not listen to his advisor, Joab. And when you read verse 1, well, before I get there, the problem with this is the Lord always promised to fight Israel's battles. And what David was doing, he was saying, how many soldiers do I have? Let me count them so I can go into battle. But God always told Israel, don't worry about the number of soldiers. I will fight your battles. And so that's why David was wrong. And so when you read verse 1, you might be asking, well, how did Satan get David to do this? I don't really know. But the lesson here for us is that Satan has this ability. He has studied humans for thousands of years. And so most likely through social engineering, he is able to influence people to do the wrong thing. We see another example in Mark. Mark chapter 8, verse 32 to 33. And he said this plainly, Jesus. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him. But turning and seeing his disciples, he rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. For you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but on the things of man." So it does happen that Satan wants to make trouble in our lives. And I know all of us have experienced trouble in our lives. And if you can't explain it, perhaps Satan is the cause. But don't take that to the extreme and blame Satan for every trouble that you experience. If you're running late to go somewhere because you didn't set the alarm, or you forget something because you didn't write it down, that's on you, not Satan. But if you're trying to do something, and it's going wrong, and you don't know why, it's very possible that Satan brought the trouble or the problem. The lesson is Satan can and does influence people by living up to his name, the accuser. Now, Jesus recognized Satan's existence. Luke chapter 10. Verse 17, the 72 returned with joy, saying, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us in your name." And he said to them, "I saw Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Behold, I have given you authority to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all power of the enemy, and nothing shall hurt you." Nevertheless, we do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice that your name is written in heaven. See, our focus is to be on Jesus and heaven. That's what's really important here. But we need to be aware of the devil's schemes. There is a war going on in the heavens between good and evil. Satan is at war with God. And if you are a God follower, then you are going to be part of that battle. But Satan has limited power. And it is a power which we do not have. But we don't need to fear it because God is watching over us. But we do need to respect it. We need to be wise about the devil's tactics so that we can resist them and sin. That's what Paul tells us to do in 2 Corinthians. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. Remember last week I said it's a battle for the mind. Satan is a trickster. He is an accuser. And if he can win the battle for your mind, then he's got you. So we need to make every thought captive to Christ. Do not make these mistakes. And a lot of people like to say this. Satan doesn't exist. Do not focus on Satan. Rather focus on Jesus Christ who won the battle over Satan. Do not worship Satan. Do not choose darkness. Do not walk away from the light of Jesus Christ. See, Satan deceives many people to do wrong things, but it doesn't have to be that way. Ephesians tells us in chapter 6, finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. See, God doesn't leave us defenseless. Even though Satan and evil spirits are more powerful than us, they operate in a realm in a way that we don't really know and understand and are not privileged to know. But God's weapons, if we use them, will keep us safe. Because in Colossians chapter 2, verse 15, it says this, He, Jesus, disarmed the rulers and authorities and put them to open shame by triumphing over them in Him. And then we get Peter's warning in 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 8 and 11. And I mean, Peter, this is first-hand experience because as we read, Peter was tricked by Satan. And I dare say more than once he was tricked by Satan. But Peter writes, beginning in chapter 5, verse 8, be sober-minded. Be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. You don't want to be eaten by the lion. What do you need to do? You need to resist him in verse 9. Be firm in your faith, knowing that the same kind of suffering are being experienced by your brotherhood around the world. And after you have suffered for a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself restore you, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. To him be the dominion forever and ever. Amen. See, he, Jesus, disarmed or stripped off or defanged, declawed the lion. And it took away the ability of Satan to touch us unless we allow it through sin or God allows it for his reasons. But even if that happens, we have a promise that God is still with us. In Colossians chapter 3, verses 9 through 11, it tells us why sin can be a problem. Do not lie to one another, seeing that you have put off the old self with its practices, and have put on a new self. We are to take off the old self, the old body, and put on the new body, which is Jesus Christ, which is being renewed in knowledge after the image of its Creator. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all. Because of Jesus Christ, we are all the same, and we are being made new so we can put off the old self. Keith Green, a singer-songwriter who was tragically died in a plane crash, wrote an interesting song about the tactics concerning Satan. The song titled, "No One Believes in Me Anymore," told from the viewpoint of Satan concerning his existence. It says how easily he is gaining power by the hour because no one believes in him anymore. See, Satan is most effective when he is not acknowledged or not believed in, and he knows it. Never forget that it's impossible to defeat an enemy that you refuse to admit exists. It's impossible to defeat an enemy that you refuse to admit exists. And as Christians, we need to be aware of the reality of evil. And though we struggle to stand firm in our faith, we need to realize our enemies are not merely human, but they are real forces that come from the power of darkness. The Bible reminds us that our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. And once you realize that, and once you accept that, it explains a lot that goes on in the world. We know that God has allowed Satan a significant amount of power. Both power and influence over the earth for the time being. But it is always with God's sovereign control. Of course, the Bible tells us that Satan prowls around like a lion in search of prey. And Satan is the power at work in the hearts of those who refuse to obey God. And anyone who is not under the control of the sovereign God is under the control of the devil. But born-again Christians are no longer enslaved to Satan or to sin. It doesn't mean that we will be protected from temptations, because we still will face temptations. We will still face attempts to trick us. But we don't have to give in to them. We can resist the devil. The Bible gives Christians the authority to resist the devil. James chapter 4, verse 7. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. So in response to Satan's attacks, Christians should appeal to Jesus. Instead of focusing on trying to defeat the devil, we should focus on following Christ and trust that he will defeat the forces of evil. See, the most effective weapons that we have against the accuser is our faith, our knowledge, and knowledge about God and His Word. And we have the example of Jesus when he was tempted by Satan, answered him with the Bible verse. So to gain victory in spiritual matters, we must maintain a clear conscience and have control over our thoughts. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 3 through 5. For though we live in the world, we do not wage war as the world does. The weapons we fight with are not weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. We demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself against the knowledge of God, and we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Jesus. So continue to stand firm in Jesus Christ. Continue to take every thought captive to be obedient to Jesus Christ. And though the accuser may come, though he may be standing there on the right-hand side like a prosecutor, we have a great defense attorney, a powerful defense attorney, and we will win the victory. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 118. 118, When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. Would you please stand? Number 118.